Hey everyone, welcome back to Talking Cardboard. Thank you for joining us for the penultimate episode of our top board games of all time. If you like what you see, click the button below, subscribe, and enjoy all the content we got going on. Without further ado, let's get to our top games of all time. So joining me for this penultimate, like I said, this is the one before the final episode, so we're going through games 10 through 6 of our all-time favorite games. To my right, we've got John. I'm Jurch, and to my left, we've got Cory. So, Cory, you have been doing most of the list prior to this.
Yep.
What has been the best part of going through your top games every year?
I think the best part for me is I get to see how the list changes every year, and it's just kind of fun to see how it changes. You would think it would stay, I think, more solidified or more stagnant from year to year, because obviously the games on my top 50 list are just that great every year, but it's fun to see when new games come out or when new to me games are introduced to me that ultimately take the throne over another game. So it's kind of fun to see how that shifts, and there has been a lot of surprises this year, and I'm sure there's going to be surprises every year. But yeah, we'll see as we get closer to number one here how that unfolds. So.
It is absolutely fun, and I know that you rank, you said at least 50. I know you've got a list of how many. Isn't it like 400 or something?
Yeah, I go through about 400 games and compare them all, and then finally break it down to the top 50. I've been thinking about doing top 100 here in the next upcoming years because there's just so many great games. But top 50 is plenty enough work and enough videos for now. So, and
it's really cool that you're able to then look back and see how your rankings have changed over the years, and you've got that little twist that you're adding to your top 10, especially here is where they were previously. John and I don't have that because we don't rank nearly as many games, but this is still a fun exercise to be able to talk about this. So, John, what's your favorite part of doing these lists?
Like Cory said, I just like seeing how my tastes have changed. This year I took a different approach to my top 10 games. I tried to pick something, I've played a lot or that just gives me the most excited when I hear about the game, regardless if I played it recently or not. Are they games that I like teaching to people and seeing other people play? So I really kind of took all these factors, put them into one thing, and just saw what came out. And yeah, there's a lot of games from last year that were on this list, but there's also some new stuff that I kind of forgot about and starting to get rekindled in my heart. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up about games that you actually play, because there are some games that I know that we've discussed that are favorite games of ours, but that aren't going to make this list because we don't play them.
Right.
And I guess I can start off. One that's not going to be on my top 10 list is the MLB Showdown collectible card game. And I know that that's been on my list. It still is one of my favorite games, but because I haven't played it in years, then I can't put that as one of my top 10 games. And I told myself that's going to stay off my list until I finish my collection, and it's not going to be all seasons. It's just going to be 2000 and 2001, the first kind of iteration. So once I complete that collection and start playing and introduce you guys to that game, then I'll be able to put that back on my list. But it's kind of in timeout right now and forcing me to actually, complete that collection. So
see, I actually did the reverse of what you did. I actually brought a game onto my list I completely forgot about and haven't played since the 90s, but it's on my list. It just brings me a lot of excitement when I think about it, and we'll see about that later.
And I think that's kind of the balance with these lists too, is rekindling that, like John said, kind of rekindling in your heart, or bringing back the memories. Some of it is nostalgia, some of it is just remembering the game that you haven't played in a while, but that feeling that game gives you, or the joy that the game gives you when you see others enjoy it, when you teach them the game for the first time, that can kind of rekindle things to be higher up on the list again. It could work in the reverse way, like Jurch said, where yeah, you remember all the fun times you've had, but it's been so many years since you've played it or since you've tabled it that you just can't put it on the list until it gets back to the table again. So it can kind of go both ways.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of this discussion while we're doing these videos. So without further ado, John, start us off. What is your number 10 favorite game?
My number 10 game is a game that I believe was relatively new last year, or maybe brand new last year, and that was a small little, I don't even know what you clarify it, but card game where you're trying to pair cards, and that's Fantasy Realms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fun game. I honestly don't know what kind of game you'd consider it. It's not like a trick-taking game, but it's like
a hand manipulation, hand maximization type game.
It's not really set collection, but you are collecting.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, all the cards are unique. You're taking turns trading cards out of your hand from the deck or the discard pile or discard row, and essentially all the cards have a unique bonus or points or just a multitude of things. They have suits, values, and you're just trying to make the best 10 card hand.
Yeah.
And that's literally all it is. And everything combos really well together. There's a lot of cool different things you can do. There's times when you have to just like make the best with what you got as the game is starting to come to a close. And all those things just work together, I think, really well to provide a fun game.
Yeah, and it's easy to bring to the table. I know we brought it for our marathon.
Yep.
We brought that out and played it with a bunch of new people. And initially, we got a lot of eye rolls. Like, oh,
Right.
what is it? But then 2 turns in,
It clicked.
wait, what is that? Wait, I need that for mine.
Yeah.
It's
It
a really fun
And
game.
then 10 rounds later, we're still playing, and it's like, do you guys want to play something else? They're like, well, I got to figure out if I can make this combo work now. It's like, well, all right, let's deal and go again.
It's a classic case of how can this be fun? Oh, it is fun
Yeah.
once you
Yep.
start playing it.
It is a cute little game, and yeah, we love playing it all the time as a filler too.
The only downside to it is the scoring can be a little bit of a pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
But other than that, like the score sheet's tiny, but it should be bigger, and you're trying to figure out how all the cards combo together and what the actual score is for each card. And
Yeah.
it's I get why it works that way, but it's fun.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Yeah, so my number 10 is kind of a traditional game. It's cribbage. I put that on because game is part of my family's culture. I joke that I could play cribbage before I could walk, which isn't technically true, but that spans multi-generations in my family is playing that game, and 15-2, 15-4, being able to peg. And I have a cribbage board in my car at all times. I have one under my pillow at home, just because that's just part of who I am, who my family is, and I love playing it. We don't play it a whole lot in Talking Cardboard because we like more thematic, engaging games, but the probability that's involved with that, the statistics and stuff, I love playing cribbage.
does the cribbage fairy come and give you bonus points for having it under your pillow? Some days, maybe.
No.
Definitely a classic game and a staple, I think, in most people's households. Not a game I really grew up with, but one that I kind of learned more as I got older, and definitely a staple in anyone's collection.
Yeah. And maybe it's more of a Midwestern or a Scandinavian type thing, but I mean, my family, we play cribbage all the time, and I bring my board out whenever we go to bars or stuff like that. So, drinking a beer and playing some cribbage, and that's just part of kind of who I am. So that's why it's on my top 10 list.
And the different types of boards you can buy, some of them get so intricate and cool looking. It's just, that's kind of some of the fun in it too. So
I'm gonna say for how old of a game it is and like basic of a game it is, there is a lot of aesthetics to it that can make it more interesting. The game itself obviously does have strategy and thought to it. Like it's not an easy game on the face.
it's a tournament style game. People can get really into it. So
Yeah.
good pick.
Yeah, thank you. So what's your number 10?
My number 10 was actually number 11 last year, and so just creeping up onto the top 10 list, and I'm excited that it has made it. A game that we've played a few times. I wish we could table it more and play it more. I think I'm more of the champion for this game out of everyone else in the group, but I think everyone else has kind of enjoyed it too. But this game is Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. And it's got that area control element to the game, typical area control that I really like. But the twist to the game is the main central mechanism where you are placing these, almost like these advisors on this action board. And there's different number of advisors, and depending on what action you're looking to do, like moving troops or bolstering troops or attacking and doing these different things, the higher the number advisor that you put on the board, you get to not only take that action first, but you also get a better, more enhanced version of that action. So I really love the push and pull of that. There's also some gold coins in the game that you can add onto your advisors to make them more strong, but you're wasting money to do that. So you can, I think the highest advisor is a level 5, but you can make them a 6 or 7 or 8 if you throw a few coins on top and bump people out, because as soon as you put a higher advisor down onto the board, it bumps those other advisors down, and now they're getting weaker and weaker actions. And as you go towards the bottom of the action board, they actually have to start paying for those actions, and if they can't afford it, they can't do it. So I think the push and pull, the whole intricate thinky part of that main action board is what I love about it most, but I do love area control also. So mixing those two together really, really surprised me, and I got the expansion for the game now too, Stone and Blade, which just came out recently, and haven't played it yet, but I hear that adds a lot to the game too.
And I know those are some of the mechanisms, you touched on them, that you really like, is the area control, kind of the push and pull, or the kind of bumping people down. I noticed that you really like the human interaction, that's one of the key elements you like in games.
Yeah, a little bit of human interaction with the Euro mechanisms, and whether it be like worker manipulation or even dice mitigation, that type of thing. Anything that you can kind of mitigate and pull one over on somebody, it's fun.
Do you remember playing that game a little bit?
You know, it's been a long time, and I remember bits and pieces. I do remember liking the area control aspect. I know there were bonus points for like certain, like there's buildings you can build, and if you build a certain number of each one or of a single one, you get so many bonus points. And I think each of you start with your own unique general, right? That gives you a unique ability, and I always like the asymmetry of that. That at least makes it a little bit varied of what each person's trying to accomplish or what they can do with their turn. So, yeah, I remember it being a fun game, and I think it's one of those that I think has a lot of promise if we played it more.
Yeah. So, John, what is your 9th favorite game?
So, this is my game that I was talking about. Like, I haven't played it since the 90s, but I recently found my cards. I got them out of the closet. I organized everything. I started buying, collecting some more cards to really bolster my collection and actually maybe get some decks together. This is the only Star Wars game on my top 10, surprisingly, but that game is Star Wars, the customizable card game by Decipher. And like I said, this came out in the 90s. It was an awesome game. I don't know, like, it was built for competitive play, but I don't know how well that would hold up in tournaments. I feel like the thing that really resonated for me was you have all these cool Star Wars characters. You can customize your decks so that you're actually like playing out something that feels like it would happen in the Star Wars universe. And I thought that was really cool. The rules were a little complicated and there was tons of stuff going on as new sets got added. But overall, I think everything was very on theme and felt really good.
And the thing I remember you mentioning the other day, too, about it is you have like a separate Force deck that you're building, which seemed like a cool mechanic.
Yeah, so the way they built this game is that your deck actually like mimics the flow of the Force, which I think is really cool and thematic. Basically, you have your reserve pile, which is your main deck, and that's your like potential Force ability is basically how they phrase it. And as your turns progress, depending what you have on the table or the locations you're at, you're generating cards in your Force pile. That's the actual Force you now have to like throw stuff on the board and complete actions. And as you use the stuff in your Force pile, you're now going to the use pile, and that all keeps cycling. And as your characters and other vehicles and cards die, you actually have another lost pile, and that's things that are now outside the Force. And that's how you win the game. By depleting someone's deck, you win because they now have no Force.
No connection to the Force.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like a complicated mechanic, but it sounds cool though too.
It does. It's all pretty simple. I mean, the gameplay itself is simple. They keep adding cards and different kind of like mechanisms to the game that really enhanced it, I think, and made it feel better. It's just remembering it all was kind of the struggle.
Yeah.
And I mean, this sounds like it's your MLB Showdown.
Right.
It's from your childhood, and it's trying to build and collect that library. And I'm right there with you. Like, I never played this Star Wars game, but I know the feel of having those binders where it's you got all the cards, and then can you make the right decks, and the theme is just something you really attach to. So as soon as you get those decks built, let us know and we can start playing. Also, if you'd like to donate to John's collection, you can either DM him on Twitter or you can leave a comment here, and you can get in contact with John to be donating to his collection, and we would greatly appreciate it. We'll give you a shout out at some point too if you help him complete his collection. So my number 9, which I know is going to appear on at least one person's list a little bit higher up, is Queen Domino. We talk about this game all the time. It's a tile drafting, and then you are trying to combo to make connections based on the types of land to maximize your grid and your point scoring. It's colorful, it's easy to approach. With the Giants expansion as well, is it adds new layers without making the game more difficult or convoluted. And it was a little bit more take that mechanism instead of everybody just kind of boat racing to their best or trying to scheme a little bit with the tile drafting.
A little more pick on the leader.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot more once this shows up on somebody else's list. But Queen Domino is my number 9. So Cory, what was your number 9 game?
My number 9 was number 3 last year, so it's fallen 6 places, but it's still in the top 10, still fantastic. Absolute blast every time we played it. I just had to kind of scoot it around to make room for some other games on the list here, and that game is Stockpile. Stockpile, staple in our collection. Play it every 24-hour marathon. Everybody we show the game to just loves it to death. It's one of the only games my dad will play. He loves the game so much, so that's telling you something too. I'm sure it'll show up on other people's lists later, but just to kind of go into the game a little bit, is it's got some hidden information. So kind of some information that you know what the stocks are going to either go up or go down, and you're either buying or selling stocks based on that hidden information that you have. Other people have their own bits of hidden information also, and you start the game with your own special power, your own special player that gives you a kind of a broken ability also. But it's just kind of about bidding over these stockpiles and trying to get the best stockpile you can for yourself to add to your portfolio, and then about buying and selling too. If a stock's going to go bankrupt, try to ditch it, get rid of it before it goes bankrupt, because then you lose all those stocks, or maybe hang on to it till the end of the game to try to not only win the company majorities for more points, but also to sell them off at the end for the highest value of money. So it's a twist on the stock market in a fun way.
If you've been following us at all this year, or you know John at all, the next game on his list is not going to surprise anybody because it's heavily John themed, and he found out he was really good at it. So John, what is your number 8 game all time?
So there's 2 things I have to have on my list every year, especially now that they actually exist. It's a Star Wars game and a World of Warcraft, or just a Warcraft game. And that's my number 8. And hopefully I'll say this right. But it is World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King, a pandemic system game. So try saying that fast.
Yes.
No, this is basically pandemic with a Warcraft theme on it. Harkens back to the WoW expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, obviously, where the Scourge are invading Northrend, and the heroes are trying to hold them at bay and ultimately go to Icecrown Citadel and defeat Arthas. There's a few mechanics that differentiate it from normal Pandemic with Arthas, the figure, the quests that you do. There's cards, they're different. But basically, Pandemic with a nice twist, I think, really elevates it up and above the other Pandemic games.
Well, and I would say that this is so re-themed and restructured. It's not like the other Pandemics. I mean, it's got the mechanisms of this is where new things are going to spawn, and right. There are places that are connect. But I know that there's been other Pandemic offshoots that we've played that are very similar, and they're trying really hard. This one feels natural.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the thing I think I like the most is the heroes they put in the box. They each come with a health total and special abilities that are unique to that character. And they did a great job, figuring out how to make those balanced, yet fit the theme of who that character is and how they operated in the game. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I would venture that if it didn't say Pandemic on it, or you didn't explain it was Pandemic, and you brought it to the table with gamers, they may not initially or make that connection that, oh, this is just like Pandemic, unless you say it, and then, oh yeah, well now I understand these parts of it. But it seems like such a unique and kind of different game.
Yeah. For somebody who's played a lot of Pandemic, you can kind of you get the similar feel to it, but it is different enough. And I'm not even a huge World of Warcraft fan or a huge Warcraft fan, and this is my favorite version of Pandemic.
Yeah.
For multiple different reasons, but yeah, the questing is kind of fun to do and unique, and the rolling of the dice and kind of using those in different ways is kind of fun too, and it just adds a twist to everything.
And the teamwork for completing the quests.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's a lot harder to quarterback it, where one person's in charge. It's much more dynamic and push and pull and working together.
Yeah, you really have to cooperate, and you need to be in similar locations to cooperate and make use of those special abilities a lot more than I would say you do in the normal Pandemic.
And the biggest thing I hate in cooperative games is quarterbacking or allowing for that. And I think with the newer designs, as the games are getting more developed recently, they're doing a better and better job at not allowing that to happen. And it feels so much more fun that way.
Yeah, it's great. And John loved it so much that he bought it twice.
To be fair, that was the one downside. I pre-ordered it. I was so excited. But then Blizzard didn't mail it out until it was already in stores. So how that made any sense, I don't know. But here we are. I have 2 copies because I couldn't wait.
Now, John, I can't give you too much crap for having 2 copies of one of your games, because my number 8 is a game I have 2 copies of, Abomination. I did the same thing as I pre-ordered it because I loved the theme, where it's a very macabre. It is kind of a sequel to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's very thematic. It's sequential. It's a worker placement, kind of resource management, because the resources are body parts, both human and otherwise. The artwork is fantastic, and I just fell in love. So I pre-ordered it, and then I saw it in stores before my pre-order came, so I decided to buy it, and then now we have 2 copies. So
this has got to be the coolest theme of any game out there.
it is so much fun. And one of the bonuses, so in addition to trying to create and then reanimate a body and going through and making your scientist more prestigious, more intelligent, or losing those things, the humanity as you're, doing some of the things we're not going to spoil. The one downside to that game was it was kind of clunky and long, but they updated the rules, or they did kind of like a fast version of it where it makes the game a lot smoother.
It really does. I think that was my initial complaint with it, because everything else is great. Like you said, the art, awesome. The theme, awesome. The length, not great originally. But the new thing, you start with certain body parts completed and you go from there, and it's like, there you go, you've now kind of taken some of the clunkiness out of it.
That's the way it should have been.
Right.
It outstays its welcome when it plays at 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
But if you can cut that in half, it's like perfect.
Which the new updated rules do. It cuts the game time in half. And then especially when you're getting towards the end, is even if somebody looks like they're way behind, you can build and animate a lot of body parts quick to catch up. And
you can't forget the blocks of ice.
Yes, ice is very important.
That's very important.
Yeah, because you got to keep those organs fresh. Otherwise, you have to go to the pound.
Yes.
You don't want to be doing that too much. So,
Cool.
Abomination is so much fun. It's in my top 10. I love bringing out with new people who are experienced gamers, so they don't have to feel overwhelmed by the resource management or the board and all the decks of cards, and they can just sink their teeth into the theme of the game.
It's a good pick.
So that's my number 8.
Ironically enough, Cory's number 8, he actually does have 2 copies of, if he wouldn't have sold his first one.
Right, yeah, my number 8 is brand new to the list, and it's brand new for the reason that I've been soloing it a lot, which I never thought I'd say in my lifetime. I never thought I would ever solo a game, but I have really learned to love soloing games now, and this is one of the best ones out there, Spirit Island. Spirit Island, like John said, I did own the game back in the day. We got it to the table. Learning the rules and the complexity of it and the heaviness of the game was a little bit clunky the first time. I didn't really understand it, didn't really enjoy it, sold it off right away. And then I just saw more and more reviews of it, more and more people talking about it recently again, and it just got me kind of thinking, I should give this game a second shot. So I repurchased it. I got all the expansions for it now. I've been playing it to death, and it's fun. I would say maybe at 3 players is probably the most I'd ever want to play it with. Otherwise, the game gets a little bit too lengthy. But at 1, 2, or 3 players, it plays fantastic, and it scales really well too. Like even at the solo play, you can just play with 1 spirit, and it still feels difficult, but also balanced enough to do that. You don't have to do 2 hands or 2 spirits as a solo player. You can just go in there, dive in with 1 spirit, and try to get those invaders off the island. I'm sure if you're watching the video, you've heard how Spirit Island plays before, but basically you're taking on the role of the spirits, trying to ward off invaders from coming on the island. So it's kind of like Catan, but the opposite of Catan, where you're playing the island itself and not the people exploring and settling the island. So it's really cool, very difficult to play. You can add some other adversaries and other things to the game to make it even more difficult, and just scale it to how good you are or how bad you are at the game. And yeah, it's just awesome.
And the artwork is fantastic. A lot of the different spirits, you really get immersed in your powers and the things you can do. And some of the ones it feels really cool to be scaring away people, or, I can clear off these 3 territories, or, man, I'm stuck to the ocean spaces, so I can't go inland. You guys got to take care of that.
Very thematic.
Yeah, and it's fun when us 3 get together and we're able to play it and kind of balance and work off each other. That's always really fun to do.
Yep.
John, your thoughts on it?
I agree with Cory. When we first played it, I think it was just a little much, and when he brought it back over for that second try, it really hit its mark, and I like the asymmetry of the different spirits and how they play. I think they're very spot on with what they're probably supposed to be doing. It's great. I enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's really heavy, but stick it out. If you can learn it, It's worth it in the end. So
yeah, that is a good point with that game. Is that's probably the heaviest one we've mentioned so far in this video.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing cribbage with me, then that's pretty heavy. So John, what is your number 7 game of all time?
This game is a game that I know Cory really loves, and we're probably going to hear about later. So I'll keep this a little brief. But that game is Castles of Burgundy. I really like the Euro type mechanics to this. You're basically building out your castle board thing, and I don't know, your tile placement, Euro things, some luck with the dice thing. I don't remember really everything, but it's a fun game. Cory will explain more. I always enjoy playing it. I don't remember all the rules and have never taught it, so.
It looks like it's your favorite Stefan Feld game too, and which is surprising that it's on your list because he makes very dry games, very dry Euros, and you like it.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know.
I like it. Yeah, you're placing tiles and you got to manage like the values of your farms, and then they kick off and.
Yeah. It's got some cool tile placement and some twist to the different effects that the tiles trigger when they.
Probably the tile placement that really does it for me.
Well, I was going to say
managing that.
That's one of your themes is tile placement, which again, like we've said before, and we'll be saying again, that'll come up later on your list too. Is that's just one of the mechanics that you love.
Yep.
So let's see. My number 7 is a game that has had a rough year, and that's Keyforge. With the algorithm issues and the game kind of going on pause, that's been hard. The community has been really strong, and a lot of people setting up either online tournaments or in-person tournaments. But Keyforge is a 1v1 card game where you are managing your cards and your resources to collect amber, which then forge into keys. So it's kind of like one of the classic 1v1 games, kind of like Magic, kind of like Pokemon, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm really into the deck collecting and then the being able to like find your avenues of success for decks. Occasionally at Talking Cardboard, we end up having a tournament, a sealed tournament, and we might try to get one of those together in the next 6 months to a year. Mm-hmm. Because it's a fun game to bring a lot of people together, especially when you're doing sealed, so you don't know what cards you're going to have, and then you just kind of bring it to the table and play and kind of figure out the spirit of your deck. And we hope that 2022 is going to be a better year for Keyforge, that they can get it back up and running again. Otherwise, this game is going to slip down my list. But it's always fun when we get together and we have tournaments and stuff like that, or when I go to the local game store to play a little bit, then that's where I have a lot of fun with this game.
Yeah, and the one thing that really surprised me with Keyforge specifically was not what you would think or what you would expect would surprise me with it, where every deck is unique and it's very thematic and the artwork is cool, the factions are cool and that sort of thing, but that is not what grabbed me. The main thing that grabbed me with this game especially was the main core mechanism to the game, where each deck has the 3 different factions, but you can only what is it, trigger or like use one faction on your turn to have those cards pop off. Only one. That's just one per turn, and the rest of them are doing nothing for you. So it's got really that tension with which faction is going to help me out the most this turn, or can I really afford to miss out on this faction's ability? Yeah, maybe I can. So that kind of thinkiness is what really sold me on it.
Yeah, and the artwork, the combinations, all that's fun. There's lore that's been out now where there are stories to be reading through Keyforge, and just it's a fun, immersive kind of universe that they're building, and hopefully it's going to be a stronger year. So Cory, let's check in on your number 7 game.
Okay. My number 7 game was number 12 last year, so another game that's been creeping up, and I think it's because I'm getting excited for the reiteration, kind of second edition of this game that's coming out soon in the Stefan Feld City Collection. It's going to get revamped, and I'm getting excited to play it again, and I know there's going to be some rules tweaks and that sort of thing to make it a little bit more streamlined, but this game is Bruges. Like I said, one of my favorite Stefan Feld games ever. In Bruges, kind of the main thing that I like about this game the most is that you get a hand of cards, and when you're playing out a card, it's got like 5 or 6 different options on the card for you to do. Each of the different options are very simple, but you do have to do one of the actions on the card. So I really like that. It's everything from collecting money to getting more cards to kind of help out your hand, or building out a river. And like I said, everything is really kind of simple, but it's also, like I said about Keyforge, it's one of those things where you're playing down a card and you've got all these different options on that card, and it's like, oh, which one do I really want to do this on it, but I would rather do, it's just kind of the push and pull of which action to do for each card. So multi-use cards is another one that just is a spearhead to my heart, and that's what Bruges does really well.
John, what do you want to add to that pick of Bruges?
I'm pretty sure I've only played this once. I remember it being entertaining, but I think, only having that one experience, not a lot to say. I just kind of remember, I would agree with Cory that the option of how to use your cards and spend them to really maximize what you're trying to do is always entertaining.
Yeah, I haven't brought this game to the table enough, but it's definitely a really good one.
Well, and that is, I wanted to take this time to mention that is one of the things when we see each other's lists, and how for some times we've only played half the games on the list or played them regularly. So this is another one of those that I remember having a fun time, but that one definitely needs to get to the table.
It's been a while. Yep.
So let's see, we are on number 6. John, what is your 6th 6th game of all time?
So this game actually came up once from Cory, and this is Stockpile. I love this game too. It's great. I think this year is the first time we actually got it to the table a bunch, and Cory's kind of been holding on to this thing and not sharing with us until this year. So glad he finally decided to show it to us. It's easy to learn. Like we said earlier, it's just stock manipulation and trying to balance what you know is going to happen with what you think's going to happen, and really trying to make the most money like real life.
It took until this year for me to show you guys this game? Has it really
I'm pretty
been?
Sure. Or late last year.
Huh.
Yeah.
Or late 2020 maybe?
Yeah, I think it's late 2020.
Huh.
Regardless, we played it a lot.
So what makes you like this game more than Cory? Because this is higher on your list than it is his.
It is the one game that I actually like the auction method.
Yeah.
And usually I do not like that. But this game, it makes sense because you have your face-up cards, your face-down, so you're kind of trying to figure out what piles are actually worth what you're trying to pay. If you know a pile's just stacked, you can just, boom, go right to the top. Then you don't even have to worry about stuff, whereas other auction games, obviously, you just bid until you can't, whereas in this one, there is a max bid for any one pile. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a really good point. That mechanism really grabs me for this game, too. And in one of the earlier videos, spoilers, Cyclades was on my list, and that had another similar mechanism where you're auctioning over these different actions. And in this game, it does it so well, too. So auctioning over those stockpiles is a lot of fun.
Again, this made my list, too, because easy to teach. I think people really enjoy playing this, so that always makes me happy if I can get other people into the hobby.
It's a sleeper hit. It's hey, want to play a stock market game?
Yeah.
No. And then they played it, and it's like, oh, wow, this is awesome.
We played at our marathon, and everyone had a blast. So
Yep, that one's always a good one to rope new people in, is Stockpile.
Yep.
So my number 6 game of all time, speaking of roping people in, this has a special place in my heart because this was the first game that I played at your house, your old house.
Yeah.
And then I fell in love and I bought it from you.
Yeah.
And this is Splendor. It's a little kind of set collection where you are collecting different types of gems and then exchanging them for, I think thematically it's like a trade route, but it's just a permanent resource that you get to use of each one of these gems. And it's very, very simple. I love the math and the strategy behind it. I'm able to play it on my computer all the time now because it's a little bit harder to get to the table with some people. It's easy to teach, easy to learn. I introduced it to my parents in 2021 and they seem to really like it. I bought all the expansions for it. Some of them are hit or miss, but I love this game. And I guess I haven't been paying too much attention, but I think this is the first game in our top 10 lists that is part of the Board Game World Series. Because Splendor is on that, and it's the first one that we've mentioned.
First one we've mentioned, yep.
That is part of that.
Second,
World
I
Series.
believe, is not Castles of Burgundy on there as well.
I don't think so.
Thought
But there are.
Oh, I do think that
I think
was.
it
Oh, is
was,
it? Oh,
yeah.
is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And there are more to come.
Yes, there are more to come.
Yes.
But Splendor's just got a special place in my heart. I love the kind of navigating your avenues. I've actually started to do some more mathematical deep dives in terms of expected values of some of these cards. And spoiler alert, I may be coming out with a limited release series of videos, and part of it is going to do a deep dive into games like Splendor, where it's more of the math behind it, some of the strategies, the player-to-player interaction. Because I love this game. It's super simple, but I like going really deep into it. So we are going to finish off this half of the top 10 with Cory's number 6. And what is your number 6 game of all time?
My number 6 game of all time was number 5 last year, so still holding very strong, kind of concrete in place. And this game is Trajan. Trajan, just love this game to death. A lot of people give it flack for just having too many different goings on in the game, too many different things to go after, too point-sality, but that's what I love about the game so much. There's all these different regions on the board that you're going after points in various ways, but the core mechanism, the main thing that drives the whole game, is a rondel wheel that you are dropping off these different colored columns in Mancala-like fashion. So it's got a mix of Mancala with various ways to get points, and it's just a lot of fun doing that. Like I said, you're picking up basically a cup of tokens, dropping one off at a time. Whatever bucket or area that you land your last token in will give you a specific action for that region. Different regions on the map to do different things. And also the color of the column that you drop in that last bucket also matters to give you various bonus points too. And it's it's really neat how things start to clump together on your board, or how they spread out, and just kind of the way that whole Mancala works. Because as it clumps together, you're kind of counting your tokens like, okay, well, now I've got 8 of them here. It's going to go around the board 8 times, and I've only got 2 here, so maybe I start with this one. But if I start with the 2 and I drop them off, that's going to make the 8 turn into a 9. So now that bucket, when I pick it up, is going to be in the 9 spot. And it's got a lot of crunchiness to that, but also it's driving, just like I said, just point salad in various ways. So,
and I do remember that was kind of analysis paralysis for me, is that Mancala style, and then what one you put where. But that Mancala, like, that is so cool, and that's the only game that I can think of that has that mechanism. So it's just really cool that is your kind of driving force for how this game plays over time. And that has been one that we've not got to the table in a long time.
It's been a long time. Yeah. Yep. One that my wife requests a lot, and still we haven't gotten to the table a lot. But yeah, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah. So, John, any thoughts on Trajan?
All I would do is echo the Mancala Rondell thing. Like, it just forces you to not only plan what action you want to do, but how are you going to be able to do that action in the first place? Are you going to get the bonus? Are you not? I probably do suffer a little bit from, like Cory said, all the different stuff going on. I have a hard time focusing on to one strategy when I first play a game, so I try to do a little bit of everything. It usually doesn't end well, but fun game nonetheless.
It's a little too open in some aspects, but a common theme with a lot of the games on my top 50 list is just when you've got this big board of all these different things you can do, but at its heart, at the central core of it, it's got this one little driving, mechanism or engine that drives the whole thing. I think that's what I love most about the games that are on my list, and this one definitely has it.
Yeah, and I think we're going to cut it here, because that was games 10 through 6 on our top games of all time. Stay tuned for part 2 of this video when we go through games 5 through 1, and I guarantee there's going to be some discussion, some disagreement, and it might come to fisticuffs. So stay tuned for the second half of this video from Talking Cardboard.